For the Love of Vinyl is brought to you by A to Z Media, the go-to partner for custom vinyl pressing and physical media of all sorts. Whether you're an indie artist or a record label, A to Z Media offers premium quality manufacturing with endless creative options to bring your vision to life. From eye-catching vinyl designs, beautiful vinyl colors, to sleek packaging, they've got you covered every step of the way. Are you ready to make your next release unforgettable? Visit a2zmedia.com. The link is in the description of this episode, and see why they're trusted by the best in the music business. Hello and welcome back to a new episode of For the Love of Vinyl. Today, we're actually going back to the very beginning of that process that we all love, which is buying and listening and collecting records. We're going back to the beginning in the sense of how are these things made? What are they made of? Now, this is not something we really need to know. Now, if you're a musician making vinyl, then yeah, it's probably good to understand the process. If you're a music fan, just a vinyl collector, why do you need to understand this process? Well, I suppose you don't, but it's very fascinating. And one of the things I learned today from my guest, Patrick from A to Z Media, an incredibly reputable company that makes records and helps artists bring their music projects to life. One of the things I learned in today's episode is just how many steps, how many people, how many materials are involved in making these records that we love so much. And as I mentioned in the interview, it's no wonder that the prices of vinyl are going up. And quite frankly, I think that records that stay in our lives forever and are passed down to our kids and our grandkids, I have no issues with them costing $100, $1,000. Some of the records I have are meaningless or worthless to so many people, but are priceless to me. Anyway, I just thought today's interview gave me so many insights into how many steps are involved in this ancient process, this incredibly intimate and analog process. In order to do this whole wonderful experience of finding records in record stores and to give this feeling to the next generation, we have to make the actual records. So can you walk us through, because you know your work with A to Z and your experience as a collector and at a label and everything you've been involved in, I really want you to kind of explain it to me like I'm five when it comes to how we go from the audio. And let's start there with a mastering engineer, whether that mastering engineer is mastering for vinyl or not. Talk to me about those actual wave files, and then let's walk through the process of actually holding the record in the jacket in hand.
Yeah, so there's a couple ways that this happens. Nowadays, it's typical that people record digitally or they record on analog and they mix digitally. And they mix within the computer, or they mix down to tape and then transfer that to a digital format. But you start with, most mastering engineers are going to have some sort of digital file that they're working with. And what they do, there is mastering for digital CD streaming and there's mastering for vinyl. There are different considerations. And I'm not an expert in all that, but I know enough to kind of help guide issues or to talk about issues with people. So what you're essentially, before you get to the vinyl process, you obviously have to record, you have to mix, you have to master, and the mastering is the last step before you enter the physical realm, right? But before you get there are considerations when you're mixing, that when sequencing, the order of songs, how long the side is. When you're making a record, I know that in like a lot of in the contemporary world of artists now, there's a lot of just singles and focus on just like releasing a bunch of singles and then making an album out of it. But like if you're truly someone that wants to make a vinyl record, you are thinking about what's the first song, what's the last song, how does side A feel to side B? And if you're not thinking about that, you should, because that is a consideration that is a huge part of the format. And there are limitations to the format in that regard.
Let me interrupt you for a second because I think you're so right in. I talk a lot about doing this process in the writing and recording process, and I would say, as a fan of the format, as a fan of albums in general, whether it's tapes or vinyl that have the side A, side B, I am thinking about the opening track of side B when I'm writing and mixing. I'm thinking, this is the album opener, this is the album closer, and this is how side A is going to end, and this is how side B is going to start. We can talk about the length of time on each side and what it should be, but if you're trying to make a great listening experience, I don't really leave that up to chance. I don't just say I'm going to make an album that's 10 songs and then we'll figure out where I split it down the middle. No. This number 5 track 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So number 6 has got to feel like an opener, because it's the start of side B. Yeah. Sorry.
No, it's true. It's, and I always say, like, I used to be a recording engineer. That's kind of where, when I came out of college, I interned at an audio recording studio, and I didn't know any of this stuff. I was an intern, and I was just like wrapping cables wrong and turning phantom power when you're not supposed to. I was doing all the wrong stuff. And I had great friends and people that owned the studio that would talk to me about this stuff. And I remember one time a band was making a record in the studio, and I was assisting, and they had like little pieces of paper cut out with all the song names and the time lengths of each song. And they were moving them around like on a big piece of cardboard, being like side A, side B, and people like voting on, I like this song there, I like that song there. And it's important because there are physical limitations to the format. When you have the outer side of a record, the outer grooves, it's a longer journey. As it goes in, it gets faster, shorter distances. So there's frequency responses that, like how loud the record is, how much low end, how wide it is, the stereo spectrum, all of this stuff fluctuates as you get into the inside of the record. And it's not something that, like, I don't think people should lose their minds trying to figure this stuff out. And because, be an artist, create your thing, be mindful of what you're creating something for, and ask the questions of the experts that you're working with. If you're sending this thing to a mastering engineer and be like, hey, I'm thinking this song is the end of side A. Do you think there's any issue with it in the sequence? Or like any considerations that we have to be mindful of with the...
Interesting.
And that might be like, it's the loudest song with the most guitars and it has phase synthesizer going back and forth. You're going to have some issues probably.
Right. And
potentially with that. So it's something to think about.
What is the ideal minute length? I've seen everything between like 15 minutes to 23 minutes. I kind of have a number in my mind. I just aim for like for me, I think I aim for like no more than 18. 18 is my magic number. And anything, so if my last song is between minute 16 and minute 18 on side A or side B, I don't really worry too much about some of those things because I feel like I'm within the margin of error. But is there like a biblical truth to this?
Well, we have this handy guide that we just made
nice.
That's called A to Z Media's Top Tips for preparing your audio for vinyl.
Well,
and
how ideal.
And it actually we have this little chart that tells you a lot of this stuff. So I'll read it. I'll just skim it for you. So like for most music at 45 RPM, a 12 inch, you're looking at a max 15 minutes for 45 RPM.
Okay.
For 33, your max of 24 minutes. If you have a lot of electronics, a lot of bass, a lot of crazy sounds, 45 RPM is closer to 8 to 12 minutes, and 33 is closer to 16 minutes. And like those are just general guides. I've personally seen records with a lot longer sides.
What's the longest you've seen?
Well, in the
spoken
80s,
word you could get. Yeah, I know in the 80s. Yeah, I have some of those.
Yeah, spoken word
and
for sure.
90s
Yeah, you
too.
can get
The 90s when they were trying to squeeze CDs onto.
Yep. Yeah, I
under
remember I worked on a record that when I was at a label, we were reissuing it. That it was like a CD era record, and it was the max amount of a CD, and it was the
74
vinyl was
minutes.
one
my
LP.
gosh.
And when we got the tapes and transferred it and compared, like I had original pressing and our test pressing on a turntable setup with a DJ mixer, and I was illustrating to people in the office like how different it sounded, and he was like the original super thin, bright, no bass, and as you crossfade over, it was like the room was filling up with bass.
Gosh.
And
you were doing like a double disc reissue?
Yeah, we did a double LP reissue of the original single LP, and the record had crazy low end. And so there's like all this stuff. Like you can do anything. Yeah, and we have it. We have clients come to us sometimes that are like, oh, I have this live record and it's like 90 minutes, and I want to do a single LP. And we tell them no, or like we say that's strongly advised against that. Yeah. So the longer the side, typically the quieter you have to cut the record. Right. So if you have a quiet record, you hear more surface noise. So like there's a signal to noise ratio. That's how people typically talk about it. So your music, and then the format itself just has noise. It's it's plastic being a stylus dragging across plastic. There's noise there. So if you have a loud record, it covers that up, and the quieter you cut it, the more you start to hear that stuff. Yeah. So that's just something to like keep in mind, to be mindful of, I guess. But it's really just do that and ask questions.
I think based on your chart, I'm pretty happy with my 18-minute rule of thumb.
Yeah. I think that's fine. And it's all dependent on the program. If it's a folk record, if it's a hip hop record, if it's a extreme noise record, like those are all the classical. If it's jazz, those all have different dynamics, different expectations from the consumer, like of what they expect to hear, and it varies a lot. So just like ask the question when you're submitting it to your audio engineer or whoever's cutting your record. Just say like, hey, do you think this is a 33 RPM or a 45 RPM? Yeah. And in additional to that, there's different ways to step is cutting, right? And I'm sure that's, if you will get into that, like there's lacquer and there's other stuff. So
okay, let's get to that. But before we do, I just want to know, when I send the audio to the pressing plant, is there anybody who's just double checking or adjusting the audio before they cut it onto the lacquer? Can you just talk about, like, is there one more level of maybe cutting a little bit of lows, or who are going to say, hey, by the way, this is not going to sound good at here or there? Does that happen ever?
Yeah. So when you have your audio mastered, typically how the engineer will set it up is you'll tell them the side breaks. You'll say A 1 through 5 are these songs, and they might ask, like, do you want track 1 to 2 to go right into each other? Do you want 2 seconds of pause? Do you want them to crossfade? Like whatever. So you figure that out. That's an artistic decision, the spacing between the tracks. And the mastering engineer will create a single, or ideally a single wave file that has side A, has every track baked with the side breaks, or the track spacings baked into it. Yeah. So if you have a single LP, a side A and a side B, you'll have 2 wave files with those. Yes. And then, and that's the ideal, because then I've had it happen before where you submit single files, personally, like of a record I made, and someone made a mistake and put the last song on side B, or the first song on side B is the last song on side A. And it wasn't discovered until we got test pressings. Yeah. So I think individual files is the way to avoid that. Now, when you get to the cutting stage, it is the last step of the process, and there are adjustments made to get it to the format. Yeah. So that might mean slight adjustments to the stereo spectrum. Okay. So how, like, if you have crazy wide, like really wide synths, really wide guitars, really wide high, like shakers, super hard pan, anything really crazy stereo, they might have to kind of narrow it slightly.
Interesting.
To get it to cut to the lacquer or DMM and to have it be able to be played back properly. So when you have a finished record, if you have technical things like that happening that aren't addressed, it might skip on playback. You might have issues with that. So they'll do like slight narrowing. If you have a lot of low end hard panned, there's this technical thing, I think it's called like an elliptical EQ, where you can take frequencies and pan them slightly center, whereas it sounds like it's still on the left side, but it's like, there's some addressing to it. So
so some of this is happening then.
And this is weed. Yeah, this is in the weeds. But
of course. Yeah, no, but that's good. That's good to know that like there is one, they're not just blindly cutting this, that they are listening to it. Yeah. Okay.
No, it's like if your side is 18 minutes, they're not just like 18 minutes and done.
Yeah. Right.
They're reviewing the program. People call it the program, the audio.
Yeah.
They're reviewing the audio. They are saying, oh, okay, this is this. Okay, wow, there's a lot of like a very sibilant, like a crash cymbal, or like the vocals sometimes are very, and that is exaggerated when you cut a record, and it can be exaggerated on playback.
Yeah.
So you want to address those things. They're called de-essers, where you can de-ess. There's ways to EQ and put compression on certain frequency bands. So if like your mid range is going to cause an issue, these are all things just to make it sound good on the format.
Right. Right.
No, most people will not hear the difference, and I'll say that I have an example right here. If you're worried about how your music will sound on vinyl, get what's called a reference acetate cut. And that's what this is. This is like basically a lacquer.
Right.
It's a soft, malleable material like a lacquer, and they cut the record exactly how they will cut it to the lacquer. So this is how you can hear how your record will sound on vinyl based on what they have to do for the cut. So you see, it's like it says A side. It's just and it's only one-sided because you can't do both. So if you have a single LP, you're going to get 2 acetates, and you can't play these more than a dozen times. They start to deteriorate.
Yeah.
Like a lacquer does. So if you're worried about, if you have a really complicated, or if the engineer says, hey, your record's really complicated, you should get an acetate cut, do that. But most people don't need it. And I would say 99% of the time, people just send their audio, it gets cut, they get a test pressing, and they approve it.
Yeah.
And that's the end of the day, because ultimately the job of the cutting engineer is to make it sound on vinyl the way it sounds on the files, and not touch it.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, that's good to know. I was very curious about that process. So what's the next step then? Talk to me about the kind of the cutting process.
So yeah, there's a couple ways this happens. So either you'll have a mastering engineer that you work with who also cuts lacquers, or like if you're working with a company like us and you say, I want you guys to handle this, we have lacquering engineers we work with. We have different studios all over the place that do these things. And there's there's lacquer, which is this like black thing I just showed you. And there's also something called DMM, which is a copper plate. It's a different process, has some different considerations. We work with a lot of places where we will ask a recommendation of, should it be lacquer or DMM, which is direct metal mastering,
right?
Based on the music. So the engineer, there's a thing called a lathe, giant machine. They're very expensive. The cutting heads are like tens of thousands of dollars, and they're very fragile. And there's all this technology that happens where there's cooling and heating. And the lacquer is essentially a piece of metal that is coated in a lacquer material that is, people say it's like similar to like nail polish. So it's slightly malleable. It's soft a bit because you have to be able to cut the grooves in. And so the program, the material, the audio will be set up on a computer. It goes through relay systems, and the lathes kind of have a computer. And then they cut the record, and they do it slowly, and they have considerations of groove spacing, how wide the grooves are, how deep the grooves are, and that's constantly varying. It will go up and down, it'll get wider. And if you look at records, you'll notice that the grooves kind of do. Low end frequencies need wider grooves than high frequencies.
Right.
So you'll see that, and then they cut the lacquer, or they cut the DMM. With the lacquer process, you have to do plating, where they take the lacquer after they cut it, which is it looks like a record is a little bit bigger. They put it in this machine where they spray it with it's called silvering, where they spray it with like a silver material that coats the record, that coats the lacquers, excuse me. And then the lacquer, the lacquer that's coated with silver gets put in a bath that's called it's a bath filled with nickel.
Oh my gosh.
And it's like, you can look this stuff up on YouTube. It's crazy. It's this big bath. It looks like a dish, like a sink in a restaurant. It's like a big industrial sink. And there's this little bag in there filled with like nickel coins. And the parts that come off silvered lacquer, the mother, the father, those go into the bath, and the nickel over periods of time releases deposits onto that part, and then that is how you create a stamper. So you put it in the bath, in the plating bath. This is called electroplating.
Can you pause for a second, Patrick? I just want to say to anyone who's complaining that records cost $30, like, is this not crazy?
Yeah, this is this is like old technology, and it hasn't changed in a long time. There's been a lot of advancements, and things are very. And I'm skipping a lot of the technical stuff.
Sure,
it's like I've been to plating facilities numerous times. I've watched records get made. I've watched all this process, and it is absolutely insane how many points where there can be an issue introduced, how much care has to go into. It's like building a space shuttle or something. It's like NASA stuff. It's like you have to think about any part of the process could introduce noise and so that's why you have these people are experts. They're scientists, like they're chemists. They understand all this stuff. And so this is what comes out of it. And this is what goes on the pressing machine, the vinyl pressing machine. So you have a stamper for each side. This is the A side, and you have one for the B side. And they get mounted onto the machine, and then boom, over and over. That's how you make the record, is with the stamper. And you get about 1,000 records off of one set of stampers.
Okay.
Before you have to change it out.
Do it again.
So these are not like forever.
Yeah.
And this is an old record from the 80s that I have. I just have a stamper, and it gets used.
By the way, I want you to compare this to DMM, this process, but I don't know if it was stampers or the DMM plates or whatever they're called, but I asked for mine from my plant, and they said they weren't allowed to give them out. Is that normal?
I've heard that before. I think that it varies.
Okay.
By the plant. I've definitely gotten them from plants before. When I've personally, on projects in the past. I don't know what the policy is for every plant, but it's something cool to have because they just recycle them.
Well, that's exactly right. I think they were saying that they were going to get rid of them because it was an old record, and I was like, oh, can I take it? Because I'd like to just have one. And they're like, no.
It's a good question, because I think it's cool. And if so when you have that process, when you get a test pressing, right? So just to kind of go back to, they do the plating. So they take the lacquer, spray it with silver or DMM. DMM's a copper plate that you cut directly into.
With the lathe, they cut directly into the plate?
It's a different type of lathe you need for DMM.
Okay, and then does that process skip the bath and everything then?
It skips parts of it.
Okay.
you still have to make a stamper the same way.
Okay.
It skips like the silvering process, and it skips a few steps in the process that some people, so there's a lot of like opinions about.
I was going to say, yeah.
Versus lacquer.
This is VHS and beta.
There's a lot of that, and they are both great. I think it really depends on your type of music, and that's a great question to ask whoever you're working with. If you're working with us and you say, hey, would this be better on DMM versus lacquer? There's costs that are different. There are timelines that are different. It takes longer and it's more expensive to make a lacquer typically.
Okay.
DM is a little faster, it's a little cheaper. So it's really just like, it's a personal preference, really.
What genres do you think what types of music do you think is better on lacquer?
Personally, I like the way, like lacquers, you can cut a little bit of a deeper groove. It's a thicker material.
Mm-hmm.
A DMM plate is a little bit thinner. So there's like limitations to both. I think rock music sounds great on lacquer. I think anything really bassy can sound great on a lacquer. But I say that, and I have personally made records on DMM that are rock that sound great. And I've been involved with some projects where we did both.
Yeah.
To experiment.
Yeah. Oh,
where
interesting.
we cut lacquers and DMM and test pressed all of that.
Yeah.
And the DMM one, it sounded like a
blind test.
Yeah, because it's like if you maybe you can go a little bit louder on one or a little bit longer side. Like it's kind of, but a lot of people we just go DMM because there's a speed to it.
Is it a less fragile process?
Lacquers are way more fragile. Or
okay.
Lacquers can have imperfections that aren't found until you get to the test pressing. They're not visible.
How many? Oh, interesting. That's interesting. How many records can you make with a DMM?
So with a DMM in the lacquer, you can make similar amounts. It's about, there's different, so again, it's getting more in the weeds, but there's what's called 1-step, 2-step, 3-step processing for lacquers.
Okay.
1 step is where you just make the lacquer and you make a stamper, and you can only make one pressing off of it, a couple hundred records, and you can never do it again.
Okay.
2-step is where you can make a couple thousand. 3-step is where you can make, because you make multiple parts, mothers, fathers, where you can pull stampers from different sets. You can make tens of thousands, before you have to recut, because eventually the parts will wear out. You can't, we have it happen all the time with big records. They're pulling parts, they're making new stampers, making a repress, and they go, hey, these parts are starting to wear out. We got to recut. We got to start over.
Yeah.
And that happens all the time. So you can, but it's, DMM is less fragile in a way in that regard, and you can get more records off of it without having to do the more expensive 3-step processing that you have to do for lacquers. So there's that consideration.
Take us to the test pressing process. Is that what comes next?
Yeah. So if after you get the lacquer cut plating, they make stampers, it gets sent to the pressing plant or inside the pressing plant, and they put it on a manual press usually, which is manually operated, and they make 15 copies, 20 copies, 30 copies of the stamper, the test pressing stamper. And that's pretty low quantity, right? So typically the test pressing isn't really meant to review. This is a debated topic, but a test pressing isn't really meant to review if the record's noisy or not. If you get a test pressing and it's really noisy, you should discuss that, because there could be an issue in the metalwork and the parts.
Right.
And that could stem from something that happened, some dirt got in the stamper, or something happened with electroplating. There are a lot of things that can happen in the process that you won't know until you get a test pressing. But what you're looking for in a test pressing are serial, repetitive issues. So if every record has a pop at 1 minute and 9 seconds on the first track on all 5 copies, then that means it's on the stamper.
You're in big trouble.
Like, you know what I mean? Like serial, repetitive. It's on common issues. If you hear a pop and on the next copy you don't hear a pop, then that's just like the presses are warming up. They're like,
you probably won't even hear that pop again on the first copy.
Issues.
Like if you go back to that first copy,
it might clear out.
It might clear out. Yeah. How often?
Clear out. There's also,
sorry, I've done, I don't know, maybe a dozen projects, and I had one issue that was an issue with the test pressing or the stamper. I had another issue that was just clearly my own problems with mixing. But how often is there an issue with test pressings where somebody, like a legitimate issue, a valid concern?
Honestly, we find that it is less frequent now, like much less than ever, because the kind of advancements that have been made in those processes. The thing where you get into trouble with introducing potential issues is like if you cut a lacquer in the UK and you send it to the US for plating, or if you cut a lacquer in the US and you send it to somewhere in Europe for plating.
Okay.
That transit time, they're overnighted and all this stuff, but like maybe it gets dropped, maybe it got really hot, maybe this or that. You kind of want to have the least amount of time from lacquer to tests. And to avoid the issues. I've listened to personally, thousands of test pressings. I've worked on hundreds of records myself personally. At A to Z, I also, because of that experience, I will review test pressings as well for clients sometimes, like if there's an issue or we're trying to figure out what's going on. I've sent test pressings to the lacquering engineer, to the mastering engineer to figure out issues. Most of the time, it's something that is in the audio. That causes a weird issue on playback, or it was something that was in the parts that wasn't something noticeable. But if there is an issue that's repetitive serial on a test pressing, we flag it. They check the parts. They might run a new set of tests and it resolves it, or they might say, "Oh yeah, there's something wrong with the parts. We got to recut." That sort of thing. I personally don't see a lot of issues with tests myself.
That's interesting.
And I think we have
it's interesting you say that there's been a bit of an evolution and technological advancements. People probably just getting better at the job. Maybe more records being made now, especially in the early 2000s or 2010s when I first started making vinyl. That's when I had an issue. And I would imagine there maybe just wasn't, I don't know, this might be insulting, but like they weren't making as many records as they are today or as they were 20 years earlier. Perhaps maybe that's why it was, it's just good to hear that they've refined the process.
Yeah. There's a lot of advancements that have been made and there's a lot of people that are kind of retired from the industry and had to pass this knowledge on to younger people. There are new companies that are coming up that are making plating materials. They're working on that field. There's companies that have been around since the 60s that are still plating. One thing to note about lacquers is there's only one place in the world now that makes these raw materials for lacquers.
Really?
There used to be two. There used to be multiple, right?
Right.
And I think in the last 10 years, the one US-based company famously, Apollo, burned. And they lost everything, and including all of their documentation. And it was a huge. I remember when the day it happened, calling my lacquering friends and being like, "What are you guys doing? Like, what are we doing?" And I remember people like paying crazy money for lacquers and hoarding them and stuff. So like, it's great that we had lacquers and DMM options, because if the entire industry, if it was a lacquer-based industry and there's one place, think about it. There's tens of millions of records made a year. and there's one place to make lacquers, like, is that good?
That's a bottleneck.
No. Like,
yeah.
you need to
my gosh. Yeah.
you need to have options.
Yeah.
That's a bottleneck. And that, like, what if they go out of business? Like,
how many, I think I talked to somebody years ago, especially during the COVID delay process on vinyl, but real quick, I mean, how many do you think materials, because as we talk about the price going up occasionally here and there and everything, the price is going up everywhere, but it's not absurd to think that the prices go up just with how many. You talk about nickel, you talk about acid, you talk about lacquers, we have paper, we have PVC, like there's probably gas and propane that's involved. Like a lot of materials are used to make a record, a lot of raw materials. And if all of those go up by 2% or all of those go up by 20%, that's a significant increase in the overall cost.
yes. And we do see that, but we also see things come down in costs.
Oh, good.
That's so great. It kind of fluctuates, and there are like global things that happen that affect pricing.
Yeah.
And there are things that suppliers, there are bottlenecks that cause increases sometimes, but then they might come back down, or like something might have gone up, but another component went down in price. But yeah, you're right. I mean, there's so many things. Like, this is all very handmade. There are hundreds of people that touch every record from the process, and it's and everyone, is an expertise in their own way. Like, someone might be an expert at packing, how it gets sleeved and the shrink wrapping. I mean, there's experts in all these, and people that have done it for. I mean, I remember I went to a printing plant one time, and the woman that was kind of overseeing the folding of the gatefold jackets had been there for like 40 years. And she was just like, boom, fold, like that famous, like a conveyor belt of like someone doing
Lucy.
something really fast. Yeah, like I Love Lucy, but then it gets out of control. But it never got out of control with them. And I was just like, wow, and I remember when she retired, I went to her retirement party.
That's beautiful.
Like we all like, beautiful. I remember going out there.
Think of the records she folded.
Yeah, all the records that, Beach Boys.
I've never
Led
thought
Zeppelin,
about
all these records.
Yeah, of all these great records there's millions of. There's some people have touched a lot of these records. Imagine being able to say I've touched every copy of the fourth Led Zeppelin record. They passed through my fingers. That's so cool. So real quick, we're running out of time, Patrick, but I want to ask you about. So the pressing process is really kind of one of the easier processes then at this point, because you have these stampers and from what I understand, they're inverted, right? The grooves are inverted. And so they're put into these big machines, A on the top, B on the bottom or whatever. And then we have from what I've seen, this is the part of the process I've actually got to witness. Where whatever the color is, these PVC, I believe they're PVC pellets, are vacuumed up into a warming machine, and then out comes Play-Doh that is then basically we have this like kind of Play-Doh hockey puck that gets a label on either side, and then it's squished. Is that accurate?
Yeah. So you have the PVC, the pellets. It looks like, it's like the little
Dippin' Dots. Somebody called it Dippin' Dots, I think, on this show.
Little chips.
Yeah.
Different curves depending on the color, whatever, clear. And they go into like this hopper, Dippin' Dots. Yeah. Yeah. And then it goes into the machine, and it spits out a little puck, a little hockey puck. And then that gets placed in the pressing machine. And the stampers are on the top and the bottom, like I said, and the hockey puck's in the middle. And then they also put the center labels by hand in between them. And then it comes down, and through extreme pressure, it pushes the puck, and it melts the PVC. And then the PVC spreads out, and it fills in the grooves. And then you get the little excess, the flash, the trim that sticks out of the side, and they take it off and they put it on a trimmings. Every press is a little different, but they then put it on like a trimming
is this
device. It looks kind of like a can opener.
Yeah, I love that process. Is go back to the hockey puck for a second. Is the hockey puck warm, or is it the pressure, or is it the stampers that are hot? What is creating it or having it melt like push down like a pancake?
It's so the puck itself is warm. It's hot. Like
malleable.
It's not gooey. Right. It's malleable.
Yeah.
And every color of PVC has a different melt point.
Oh, jeez.
That's another thing. Like you have to adjust the machine based on the type of, like, is it maybe pink vinyl has a higher melt point than black vinyl, and you have to adjust stuff.
Yeah.
So the puck goes on there, and it's malleable, but the pressure that this hydraulic press is it's called compression molding.
Okay.
So it's pushing down, and anything you put in there would just get destroyed. It's super, super powerful, and it creates heat. The heat from the press fills through the stampers, and then it has to be cooled very quickly. There's like chillers and there's boilers for these things. And the cool water comes in to help cool it down so that the grooves fill. It's crazy. And there's like, it takes like 45 seconds per record to press. And when you take it off, it's like, you'll see it in videos. It's a little bit, it's like gooey looking. And then they put the record there, and they have to cure overnight, like 24 hours. So they put them on these big spindles, and they put them aside in like batches of 50 or whatever, and they put them aside and they cure overnight, and then they can be sleeved. But while they're pressing the records, you are pulling off definitely the first couple dozen. You're checking out to see if there's audio issues, because like you can get surface noise or pops or things if the press isn't dialed in right with the heat and temperature. So this is like a phase 2 of test pressings, but it's done by the plant people, you don't get a copy of these. You don't get a copy of these, but they have an approved test pressing. Mm-hmm. So they have charts that say like, oh, this is the A side, this is the B side, this is the A side label, the B side label. They have like photos of this stuff, so they know they don't mess it up. Yeah. And then they pull a pressed copy off in the first batch when they're getting the machine going, and they take it to a QC room, quality control, and they have people that we have people that are just all they do is listen to records all day, and they have an approved sample test pressing because they keep copies of those, and they have the pressed one, and they listen to it and they'll be like, oh, there's some surface noise in the lead in. So with that, if you get surface noise at the beginning of a record, that can mean that there's the pressure of the stamper when it's coming down, it has to be equal. Yeah. Yeah. For the wax, for the PVC to fill, it's squished. So if you get surface noise on the outer grooves, it typically means that there was something off with the pressure, or the wax, the PVC wasn't filling all the way on the outer grooves. And so they can make adjustments for that, and they recycle those records. They don't put those in the sleeves. And they're kind of testing the press right at that point. Oh, so they're doing that while that person is doing number 6, number 7, number 8. She's got the first 5 and are listening to it and say, hold up, there's an issue. Yeah, and there's visual things too. You can see stuff visually, that sort of thing. Yeah. But there's someone checking the audio, and they do this periodically through the pressing. Right. Every place is a little bit different, but it might be every 50, every 100 records or something. I've met someone who does this job, and I would say it's this job to listen to music for a living, 9 to 5, is an absolute nightmare. I actually find this to be a job I would not want to do, because I imagine just like 9 o'clock Monday morning, and you have to sit and listen to this really whatever it is, whatever type of music you don't want to hear 9 in the morning, 8 in the morning on a Monday morning. For some people that's jazz, for some people it's metal, but I don't think I would want that job. It's hard, and you're also always dealing with issues. Yeah. Right? So it's not fun. But I think it's a certain type of person, and I like doing QC work. It's stressful, but these people are, everyone's an expert in this field, and they, you're not putting that, the person that's doing that is not their first day on the job. Like a lot of times there are people that have been there for a while, or they've worked, they know the presses, and they have, guides of what things to look for, and what to be mindful of. And what to ignore. So that's what's cool about them too. They can hear things that would alarm some of us. It's like a flight attendant in an airplane who doesn't get bothered by turbulence. Like they can hear something and go, that's not an issue. Yeah, there are things that like, that's just non-fill that is getting worked out. We don't, it's not like just adjust the temperature, adjust this setting. And but there are checking stuff, making sure it's centered, making sure it's not like the label centered.
Yeah.
And when they play the record, they have, microscopes and things. They can look at the grooves. If they hear an issue, they have devices to measure, we work with like devices to measure, the fluctuation. You might see a record that's off center and it wavers.
Yeah.
So there's all that sort of stuff. And then the record's pressed and the packaging is another part of the process where QCing is happening, where like the people that actually put the records into a sleeve, into the jackets, they're working under very bright lights. They have gloves on. You don't get fingerprints on your records. These are clean rooms. They're very they're like labs in that way, and they're factory labs, and they're looking at the record, looking for imperfections. That is a secondary step.
I see. To every single record?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so is that going straight from the compression units into paper, into being put in the jackets, or does that happen another time?
That happens in like usually it's 24 hours that you want the record to cure.
They have to cure. Right.
Yeah, so you want it to cure, and then and that's why like people will sometimes have crazy rush things but you gotta wait for that, and if you don't, you're looking at issues.
A shout out to the people who do this, because I'll tell you honestly, everything we've talked about here for 90 minutes, there's so many steps along the way, and I am just amazed when I get up 200 records back and the label's on the right side, the audio sounds good, it's put in the right sleeve. Like it's a really, you've been calling them scientists, but it really is they're artists and they're scientists and they're engineers all in one. Like it's a really big job. I'm so biased because I make records, but I also buy records, but I feel like any record that costs less than $100 is not fair because of how much goes into making this incredible artifact, not even to talk about writing and recording the music. But anyway, it's just such an incredible process.
It's true. And at A to Z, many people that work at A to Z are in bands, are artists that have record labels.
Yeah.
So we understand like the client. We understand that someone spent a year making this record, and we want to see success. We want them to feel proud of, and when people post on social and like tag us and they're like unboxing the record, that's where it is. That's the magic, like that excitement.
That's a once in a lifetime for some people.
Yeah, they may only do it once, and if it got messed up, if everyone didn't do their best, then it can, and that can happen at the shipping stage. UPS or whoever could drop a box and it get damaged, and that's really unfortunate, because like it has to be every step of the process. You have to be professional, and then as the label, when you're shipping the records, if you choose a bad mailer and it gets damaged, like
True.
There's so many parts where and then the fan gets bummed, and it's like there's so much to think about, but this is an old industry with lots of technological advancements that are in place, and I think we're making some of the best records possible now.
Do you find, as a seasoned record collector, as someone who's been doing it for a long time, do you find that going to record stores, your success rate has to drop, right? Because the stuff you're looking for gets harder and harder to find. This is what I'm experiencing right now, and it's making for less and less rewarding, exciting, once-in-a-lifetime record store finds, because I've already got all those ones. I'm on like level 9, and I find it's more depressing.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, in Los Angeles, there's dozens of record stores.
Yeah.
There's so many record stores, so many great record stores, amazing people that run these stores. I go into them to talk and hang out and chat mostly. I go in, when I go to a record store, I look at the wall. That's where I go. I always go to the wall just to get a vibe, like a vibe check of like what sort of stuff they have. Because if what they put on the wall is generally reflective of what's in the bins, I find.
Okay.
So I go to the wall and I go, okay, that John Cage record's $200. Yep. That Fela Kuti record's $300. Whatever, to get a feel for the pricing and stuff. And because like you're saying, at this point, I do have. I mean, there's millions of records, and we don't have everything. And I only have a couple thousand records. And I'm not a completist. I don't buy everything that I see. But I'm at the point where a lot of the records I want are on the wall.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
They're the $100 records. They're the $50 records. The records that I've been looking for that you can't find.
Right.
But I go to the wall, I look at the wall, and I go to the new arrivals, the used new arrivals, and I look, and I almost always find something. I also have a jukebox that we got recently, a 45 jukebox.
Oh, nice. So you've been
I've been
just collecting 45s.
Loading it up.
Yeah. Is the 45s with big holes?
Yeah, it's a 1963 Wurlitzer, so it's only 45 RPM, but it can do small or big hole.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, but it has to be 45.
Fun. So you can curate your own jukebox. It's like making a playlist, but the old school way. Like,
yeah,
you only put songs in there you love.
Yeah, and it came fully loaded with records.
Oh my gosh. Where do you find something like that?
Some were less story. Probably the best find I've been thrifting and vintage hunting my whole life, collecting stuff. And we were driving to dinner one night in Los Angeles, and it was the afternoon. I was at a red light, and it's like a movie. Like a flash of light hit my eyes, like something reflecting.
Yeah.
And I went like this, and I looked over, and there was a jukebox on the street in the trash bin, like next to the trash bins. And I said to my wife, there's a jukebox over there. And I was like, it's probably broken. She goes, turn around. We turn around.
That's a good wife, by the way.
Yeah. Well, she's
my
always
wife would be like, keep driving.
Yeah. She's a huge music person too. So we turn around, we pull up, and a guy was all of a sudden standing right there by the time we did a U-turn. And I was like, what's up with this jukebox? Are you selling it? And he says, I tried to sell it. I tried to give it away. Nobody wanted it. I'm throwing it away. If you want it, take it right now. And it was, we just didn't know what to do. We took all the stuff out. We have a young child. We took the kid out.
Leave him on the curb.
Put down all the seats.
Yeah. Walk home. Walk home. So wait, you have is this a minivan or like a jukebox size vehicle?
It's a 2002 Honda CR-V.
Oh, okay. Perfect for jukeboxes. It's made for jukeboxes.
So here's the thing. If you're ever curious what the interior capacity of a 2002 Honda CR-V is, it fits exactly a 1963 Wurlitzer jukebox.
Yeah, that's a great way to measure. It's like how they measure horses by hands. It's like how they measure CR-V capacity.
Thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, we put down the seats, took out the car seat. My wife and I picked it up, pushed it in on its back. Probably did some stuff to it that we shouldn't. It's 400 pounds.
Wow.
So yeah, it was. We were luckily close to home, so we drove home and just got it in the house.
400 pounds with the records in it?
Yeah, everything in it. Exactly like that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so it was very heavy. It was incredibly difficult to get it out of the car. In was easy, but gravity, we couldn't get it up. And then getting in the house, the doorways are narrow. It's an old house. It was very crazy. And then we plugged it in, and it didn't work.
Oh no!
Or it would work kind of sporadically.
Yeah.
And you still had to put quarters in it. So I found a jukebox guy in LA. There's a couple pinball
only in
places.
LA. Only in LA is there a jukebox guy.
Yeah, he does pinballs and jukeboxes.
Okay.
And because there's similar technology, I guess.
Yeah, sure.
And he came over, and he was like, you can't believe you found this on the street. That's that's crazy.
Yeah.
And he for in about 2 hours, he had it all up and running. He greased all the parts. He repeat, like eventually I need to recap it or something like that. But,
okay.
And then I took out all the records that I didn't like, and then I started putting in records that I wanted, and then I've just been buying 45s if I'm out, like, you know, because like you said, it's like a playlist. Once it's on free play now, so you don't have to put quarters in.
Oh, okay.
And so you can just hit every combination, and it will just play for as long as it has to go through all the selections.
I kind of love that, knowing that. How many records does it hold?
I think it holds 50.
And so that's like 100 songs?
Yeah, because it'll play both sides, yeah.
I feel like it's not hard to fill 50 of your favorite records and or favorite songs or whatever. I feel like that's just such a cool, intimate, non-algorithmic, randomized thing to press some buttons and to hear, oh, that song. Oh, that's, you know what I mean? That's such a great experience.
It's great for kids too. We have friends over with kids, and it has letters and numbers. And for my son, who's almost 5, he's learning, you know, to read and stuff. And he'll be like, choose A5.
Yeah.
He'll go A and he'll go 5. And
how has he
kids
been?
Love doing
How
that.
has he been since you left him with that jukebox guy in the corner for a half an hour? He got over that?
He got over that pretty quick.
We'll be right back. This is a nice gentleman.
Yeah, it was just the craziest. And every time I tell a story, it never gets old telling it because it was so insane. And it's just like, and it's one of those things that, you know, I always say, like with record collecting, with any collecting, people always like to talk about, oh, I got it for $1, I got it for free. The person didn't know it. I'm like, I pay up for stuff. I paid $300 for a record before. Yeah. But I've also paid $1 for a $300 record before. Yeah. And this is like $1,000 jukebox, but I've also bought things that were expensive. So it's kind of like, it all evens out.
It does. I know exactly what you're saying. Yeah. And that's a good way to look at it. I think, it's such an interesting thing because I don't know if it's a uniquely LA thing to have so many record stores have jukebox on the corner, but that's incredible. You know, it's what you're saying is so interesting, is that it's everything we do is about the process. And I think it's going back to my original question to you, why I've been feeling depressed lately going to stores. It's like I'm not getting those endorphins that I used to get a little bit more regularly, a little bit more predictably, because there were still certain records I was trying to get to round out my collection. And now they're becoming harder to find and less likely to find, especially where I am. And so I'm feeling that. And I think it's because I'm not really there for the records. I'm there for the story. I'm there for that experience that you have. I feel like you're going to get way more joy out of telling this story, or even just that moment, that memory, than you ever will from the jukebox sitting in your living room, you know?
Yeah. I mean, that's true. It is about, like, I mean, I've been to record stores all over the world. I've been fortunate to, you know, travel for work and things and go to record stores in Hong Kong that were like crazy in someone's apartment. And, you know, it doesn't, like, language barriers. Like, you show, like, you know, I remember showing on my phone, I like this kind of music. And the guy's like climbing over piles of records and pulls out something that you've never seen or heard of. And through broken English, we're trying to figure out what the deal is. Or like I was in Japan and there was a record that I was looking for a long time, and it's hard. You can buy it on like eBay and ship it here, of course, but like I wanted to buy it just in person, and it's a very common, like, it's not like expensive record. And I went to the shopkeeper and I tried to speak a little bit Japanese that I know, and showed him the record, and he was like, oh, I don't have that here, but I have it in my storage. Can you come back in 3 days? And I was like, I was in Kyoto for a few days. I was like, sure. And he got my email, and he emailed me and he said, okay, it's ready. And I came and got it, and it was like $7. So he went to his storage unit, dug this record out. And I mean, I think that's a sign. That's a special thing when someone
he's not
goes
doing
that
it for
far.
He's not doing it for the money at that point. No,
he saw that I loved the record, and he saw that I really wanted it, and he had it. Yeah. So he just had to go get it. Yeah.
Wow. I have so many questions about that jukebox thing. Now I kind of feel like we should do an episode on jukeboxes, and we'll say, so we recently,
that would be cool. Yeah. That's cool.
Well, I was going to ask you because I've realized that every time I get into a new thing, I join a different subreddit and a different Facebook group, like whatever it is, and my wife just bought a certain type of electric car that's pretty rare. And I found there's like all of these pages dedicated to these enthusiasts. Is there a jukebox owning Facebook group that you're a part of?
Not on Facebook. I have looked at Reddit threads.
Yeah.
When I'm trying to troubleshoot, like I had a problem where it wasn't loading records, and I had to have the guy come out again to fix it. And it was a simple thing that like I didn't have a record in A14 or A10. And so when it went to go pull that record, there was nothing there, and it just jammed. And he was like, "Oh, it has to be filled. You can't have it empty."
Come on, interesting.
Like that sort of thing is like probably I could have if I asked on a subreddit or something, I could have found that information. But yeah, I'm definitely a member of I follow a bunch of subreddits for various things to try to troubleshoot or just try to figure things out. And also, I mean, just like in the field I work in, I like to see what sort of questions people are asking on those places to kind of help understand what like where people are on their journey or what sort of questions are being asked about things that when you work in vinyl for a long time, you always know what this thing is. And it's kind of like you're saying, like, think about it as like a 5-year-old. I always think about it that way because no one is born with this knowledge. Like it's all from experience and asking questions. And that's how I've learned everything was making a mistake and having an issue and talking to people that have been doing it for a very long time and that are very gracious with their time. And you can ask them silly questions like, tell me what this means. And they'll just talk to you for an hour about it.
Well, it's interesting because what you say, like nobody's born with this information. I would say the majority of people today collecting records were not alive when records were first introduced or in their heyday. You would have had to have been born in the 50s or 60s to be a teenager in the 70s and 80s when, and even by the 80s, things were evolving. But a lot of us, particularly people younger than me who are, really into this hobby now, they're coming at it completely fresh, which is cool.
Yeah.
How,
we that's definitely true. I mean, I think it's like 80. It was something like 78% of people that bought vinyl in the last year were Gen Z. There was like a report that came out about something like that. It was a crazy. Yeah.
That's awesome. I love that. So, how big is your record collection? You've had to move it across the world. Do you have a number? Let's just say the not including the 45s.
So when I moved in 2019 across country, I sold a bunch.
Okay.
And I had a bunch I used to work at another record label, and I had like all the records that I worked on that were there.
Yeah.
Like the records that I had helped make. So those were a part of it, but I kept a lot of those. And then like I had sold a bunch of records because I just couldn't, the place we were moving to didn't have a lot of space. So I don't know. At one point I probably had 4,000. I think probably now I'm 2,000, 3,000.
Okay, so you sold some stuff, you were moving, you probably just thought, let's free up some cash and free up some space in the moving truck. But do you think, and then I want to get into talking and making records, but do you think, every time I've asked somebody this on this podcast or on the other podcast, it's quite blasphemous, but do you think there's like a limit to how much vinyl you should collect? Like, do you get to a certain, like, if you have a storage unit, then I would say you're not really enjoying those records. Like, to me, I've always had, my record collection has always just kind of filled the shelf that I have. And that shelf has gotten bigger over the years. But more than that, then all of a sudden they're scattered throughout the house. And I feel like it's less of an intimate collection. So how do you, like, is it quantity over quality or what is it?
That's a really interesting question. And I think a very loaded question for a lot of people. Yes. Okay. So
everyone's afraid.
Do people hoard records and hoard collections? Yes, they do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are there people that buy records uncontrollably? They just like buy everything and never listen to them. Are there young people that buy a record at Target and never play it? Yes.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Are there young people that buy records and play all of them? Yes. Do I have records that I bought in last year that I've not listened to yet? Yes.
Wow. Yeah. I hear you.
I'm not precious about it. I'm precious about certain things. I have a lot of records that I have sentimental, like I'm a huge Arthur Russell fan.
Okay.
And I have original copies of like almost everything that ever, 7 inches, 12 inches, everything. And I have all the reissues, and I just like, I love his music so much, and I'll buy anything that he ever, there's a Allen Ginsberg record that he plays cello on that I own just because he plays cello on it.
Yeah.
It's like that sort of thing. So there are things like that. And there's records that like I got when I was a kid, or the records that like I have my mom's, Pretty in Pink soundtrack on vinyl that I remember listening to when I was a kid. And I have some of my parents' records. And so those are special, and I won't get rid of them. But there are things that, you might get into something. Like in the early 2000s, I was really into elevator music.
Okay.
Like Exotica, Lounge, Elevator, Muzak.
Yep.
And like the 101 Strings, Montavani, Command Records, Enoch Light, the Free Design, all these kind of stuff, Space Age Bachelor, Pad Music. I got really into that. And those records were like, 10 cents at the flea market. And I would buy, Command Records was really cool. They had a really strong graphic design because they knew that the album cover sold the record.
Awesome.
The album cover sold the record, and the listing on the back that said like, this record was recorded with Neumann U67, all the technical stuff.
Yeah, I love that.
So I bought all those records I could find, and I had them like all like a little wall display. And then eventually I was kind of like, I feel like I'm done with it. I did that. And I got rid of them all.
Wow.
So, but I definitely, I've had that mindset before where I'm like, oh, let's get rid of that. And I deeply regretted it because I really loved that record. And I'm like, why did I get rid of that record? Or what happened to that record? Things like that. But
you're not the first person I've talked to who's had that catch a fish, then throw it back in the water.
Yeah.
That's I think that's kind of the fun part of the job is.
Yeah. It's about finding stuff. Yeah. And when it's the thrill of the hunt. And that's kind of what you're saying, when that kind of diminishes, I think as you get older, maybe you have less income to buy records and buy random stuff. I also collect like books, and I collect.
I do too. Yeah.
I come from a family of collectors or hoarders. So I'm mindful of the hoarding side, and I go, okay, this is out of control.
Yes.
This is going away. I'm getting rid of this stuff. But I also love, this is something that I have friends that are like this, and I don't know where I got this from, but I love finding a record that I love and buying it and giving it to someone.
Yeah.
Like a record that is cheap or something.
Yeah, that's right. You
should get this.
Yeah. A record that like you see quite often, so therefore it's $10 or less, but is not on everyone's radar. It's not rumors. It's not like something that everyone has, but is a brilliant record that nobody, and it maybe has ugly artwork and it's just passed over. There's a record in mind that I have seen. Every time I see it, I go, oh my gosh. It's funny. There's this record, I think it's called 1989 by Herb Alpert. And I had to order it online. I had to order it from Discogs because I thought it was super rare. But now I would say I come across it a couple times a year at flea markets and record fairs for $10. That's the record where I'd go, this is a brilliant record. I'm going to buy it. And I almost feel like I should just keep a collection of that record or whatever record. So when a friend comes over, be like, hey, I got a record for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I do the same thing. For years, there were records that I would buy every time I saw them because I loved them and they were cheap. And I was like an advocate for them. And I just wanted people to know about them. And I did it recently. I haven't given to my friend yet, but there's this really cool record, like a private press record of like a Vietnam vet who came back and made this super cool kind of dirty, like garage, like almost J.J. Cale kind of vibe record. And Paradise of Bachelors reissued when they were mainly doing reissues. Like when they first started, they did it. And I bought it when it came out and I just loved it. And then I saw it at a record store and it was like $14. And I just said, I was like, I have a friend that would love this because it's out of print.
Yeah.
And I just bought it. And when I see them, I'm just going to give it to them and just be like, hey, you should check this record out because it's really cool. And I have friends that do that. I have a friend who's in a band and he tours the world and he's a big record collector. And every time I see him, I got this for you in Greece, you know?
Oh, that's awesome.
I'm like, you've been carrying this around?
You know what, though? It's actually a little bit selfish on your part and on his part because it scratches your own itch, right? Like you get to buy the record again. Like you found it, you get that little endorphin of like, one of my favorite records. And then you buy it, like it actually scratches your own itch.
That's true. Yeah, it is. There's just something about it that like, I mean, I just think if you truly love anything, you want to share it with people.
Right. That's right.
You want to be in a community. Like I've never been one to look down on someone if they didn't know about a record or a band. I have this be all the time. People are like, "Oh, you know this thing, right?" And I'm like, "I've never heard of that." And they're like, "How do you not know that?" And you're like, with the world you're in, and I'm like, "Because you can't know everything." and why would you want to? Like, there'd be no joy in life if you just were born and you knew everything about everything. You'd just be like, "What's the point?"
Oh my gosh. I'm like that with most classic rock records where I have seen the album cover a trillion times. Like I'm talking like Supertramp, Chicago, even Pink Floyd stuff. Like the records that you see everywhere, like at Goodwill, at record stores, wherever. And I'm like, I have no clue what that sounds like. I have no clue if it's like heavy or like adult contemporary. And recently, have you heard of the channel Yacht Rock Radio on Sirius XM? They have they play just yacht rock, and so it's like it's all like this like adult contemporary classic rock. And every time I hear like a new band, I'm like, oh, that's what that band sounds like. Oh, that's awesome. I should get that record. Like, so I'm actually like shamelessly or shamefully, so many classic rock records. I have no idea what they sound like.
And I think so. I thought about that as well because I'm similar. I feel like if you're a certain age, you grow up with Beatles, Led Zeppelin, Rolling Stones, all these things as being like your parents in the older crew saying like, "Oh, it's the best. It'll never be better. Yeah. Everything that's happening is garbage after 1982," or that sort of mindset. And so when I came up in my journey of collecting and just buying music on physical media, I came up being like, I don't want Led Zeppelin records. Yeah. I don't want Rolling Stone records. I don't want those things because it's already like, it's a known entity.
Yeah, that's right.
But I would buy them a lot because I was just collecting and I was trying to build. Like I had this thing for a while, like if it originally came out on vinyl, I wanted to have it. Like if that was the first format it came out on, I wanted to have it and I wanted to experience it in that way. So I would buy them, but you could buy Led Zeppelin and Rolling Stones records for cheap. You could buy
$1.99.
These records. Yeah, now because they made trillions of these records and they were everywhere. And then now, a Led Zeppelin, obviously I know there are certain variants that are collectible ones and all that stuff. But like if you just want to buy an original copy of Pink Floyd, it's $40, $50, most of the time. And so I feel bad, like younger people, they have the internet and they have streaming to discover and to check out these things. Before that, you needed to have access to cheap versions of these things to be able to even hear what it sounded like.
That's a good point.
And so that's kind of, so it's like when records become too expensive on the used market, it becomes something where you go, okay, if it's a $50 record, you used to be able to buy, you could buy 50 records and you could get exposed to a lot of stuff. But now if you're in a position to, you have $50, like that's one record.
Yeah.
And you have to, it's like, that's where the quality conversation starts to happen. And just like getting exposed to stuff is harder. And I think that's why you have to be two mindsets when you're someone that goes to record stores a lot. You have to go high and low. That's how I look at it. You have to look at the wall.
Okay.
Way up high. You go to Amoeba and there's 50 records high on the wall, and you're like, oh, that's $1,000. And then you have to get on the floor in the dollar bins.
Underneath the bins. Yeah. Yeah.
Because you will, I have friends who have pulled crazy records out of dollar bins at Amoeba and stuff. Not so much in the last 10 years, but because they're very good at cataloging their inventory. But it definitely happens where you'll go to a store and you'll find something that's in the free bin.
You don't even need to find a record that's worth a lot of money. I don't really care too much about that. I'm not. People have already beat me to it, but I love to go now to a big record store or a record store that in a new town with a pair of headphones and my phone, and I'll see a new age record that's like has this most goofiest album cover ever, and I'll listen to it on Apple Music or Spotify and be like, holy, this is like beautiful music. It's all analog. These aren't, digital sounds. It's not samples or AI music. And it's $4. And it's not worth anything more than $5, but
sure.
I love that experience. Like you're discovering stuff that isn't necessarily worth money, but is certainly overlooked.
Yeah, it doesn't. I'm not chasing $300 records just to be like, I have a $300 record.
Yeah.
I have some valuable records that I'm like, it's okay.
Yeah.
And I have some records that are extremely valuable that I understand why, because they were probably 250 made.
Yeah.
And
100
of those got destroyed in a fire or something. It's extremely rare. The tapes are lost. Like this is the only thing. That sort of thing. But to me, I mean, I'm chasing, like you're saying, the feeling of finding something that you can either, you already know you like and you're excited to find it, or something that you didn't know about and you're just like, this kind of looks cool. and you take a chance on it. And if records are affordable, you can do that. If used records are affordable, you can take chances.
I can't tell you how many times recording this podcast, and now this is probably 9 times, where like halfway through the conversation, I'm itching for it to end so that I can go to a record store. You know what I mean? Like, I should go. I think it's still open. It's just for sure talking myself into it. I feel like hopefully fans who are listening who aren't on this side of the hobby can have an appreciation as to how much work goes into, and again, we haven't even talked about writing and recording and mixing, but how much work goes into that process. I've had so much great success making records. I love doing it. I still find it extremely stressful process. My first job was in 2013, and a lot of things went wrong. I think it was the early days, but it all culminated to I was tracking UPS, and the plant. Most of the people at the plant did a great job, but I was tracking UPS, and they're delivering, probably 300 records, maybe 6 boxes or more, and all of a sudden it says that the records have been delivered and they're not on my front porch. And then I look across the street at this little bungalow where this old lady lives, and there's 6 boxes on her front porch, and I'm like, I really doubt that she's pressing vinyl. And so I had to go across the street and pick up these records from this little old lady who lived across the street. And I looked like I was stealing something from her. But anyway, such an involved process. Thank you for walking us through this process. And thank you for what you do at A to Z to make sure we can have records to collect.
No, thanks for having me on the episode and chatting about this. I love talking about these things, and I just encourage anyone, if you are getting into this process and you have an audio master engineer or you're working with A to Z or whoever, and just ask questions and just, pick people's brain. And because that's how I've learned everything, was just calling up a lacquering engineer and being like, this is the first thing I'm doing. Can you give me 20, 15 minutes? And, I think people are usually pretty gracious with their time, because it's a learning process. And the more you know, the more confident you can be in the outcome, I think.
Whoever your sales rep is at whatever plant you're using or broker you're using, I mean, I agree with you. You use them like they're, they are obligated. It's their job to talk to you. So don't be embarrassed that you don't know. I mean, honestly, I've learned a ton in today's episode, and I've been doing this for 20 years, but don't be embarrassed to ask questions. Chances are they don't know all the answers anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, there might be a unique question, or, like on our website, we have FAQs and PDF guides you can download, and and then when you're talking to a sales rep or a CSR, they can help you with those journeys, and whoever you're working with on the audio, or, all that stuff. There are people here, there are people out there to help you, and it's going to be okay.
It's good.
We're doing this day in and day out. People are doing this all over the world day in, day out. Records happen, they come out, they sound good. You're creating this amazing piece of art for fans, and it's going to be great.
You guys are midwives. That's what you are. You're midwives of records.
Yeah. Doulas. Yeah. We're the doulas.
Thank you all for listening, and thanks again to our sponsor, A to Z Media. If you are a musician, an independent artist, or an independent record label, and you're getting ready to manufacture your first vinyl release or your second or 100th vinyl release, check out our friends at A to Z Media to help you with that process. Not only do they do vinyl, they do media of all sorts, including cassettes and CDs and books and so much more, including awesome box sets. But check them out for your next vinyl release by going to a2zmedia.com. That's spelled A-T-O-Z media.com.